Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the press conference. It is Thursday, April 29th, and I'm excited about the topics that I wrote up last night in the email that I sent out. So happy to jump into those. But first, I want to pass around the talking feather. Any comments or any questions or any ideas? So just jump in. You're in a safe space.
This is Michael. Hello, all.
Hello, Brother Michael. Hello, everyone.
Oh, Sister Ivy, please check your email inbox. I have an update as to the delivery of the hot cups, the soup cups.
Thank you. Good job. Good job. Thank you.
Those are being shipped the latest tomorrow, and it'll take like 4 days. So that's all
right.
done.
Thank you. Thank you. Great job. Good.
That's
doing.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Let me know when we need. That's not the last of my orders. Over.
Good job.
Great. Thank you for that update, Michael. And Sarah has her hand up. Go for it. Sarah, sister.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Michael. I'm really happy to see that you're on here. I'm really happy to see that Alicia is on here, and of course, Sister Ivy, James, and Alan, and Jamin. I wanted to say that I really appreciate you, Michael, helping out and with food healers and helping out with We Are Uno. I just really, that touches my heart. It's just, thank you. Really, really appreciate you. And I wanted to find out if Alicia knows about what we were going to be trying to work on after this first part, the Chrysalis, the SRM, because when you sent us the email this morning, I read through it and I replied that I think that SRM and food healers goes hand in hand, because we can't really grow crops when the planet's burning and people aren't waking up, and we really need to talk about that because it's real. And now that Alicia has seen Seaspiracy, she knows that it doesn't matter how many plastic things we use. You know, it's the fishing, right? It's the fishing. It doesn't matter how many plastic bottles we use. The fishing is where it's at. And there's really no more fish in the ocean anyway. It's all fish farms. It's all just, we need to show that somehow with the SRM model. What do you think, Jamin?
Yeah. So let's dive into that, especially considering Alicia probably doesn't even know what SRM stands for. Maybe. Okay. So let's have a brief review of that, and then we can jump in. That's a great place to start. So the big picture here, and by the way, we don't mince words here. We get really straight to the point. The planet is overheating exponentially, and it's far worse than the mass media or government representatives would have you know. And the very fact of the mass delusion that we're living in is a massive topic unto itself, and we explore various facets of that right here. So the bottom line, cutting to the chase of SRM. SRM stands for Solar Radiation Management. And in practical terms, that means reflecting, using mirrors or some form of reflectivity, reflecting a really significant portion of the sunlight which is landing on the Earth, reflecting it back into space before it has a chance to get absorbed, whether by rocks or water or the tops of people's heads or buildings or anything like that, reflecting it back into space, kind of like how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would bat away a basketball before it has a chance to go into the net and score 2 or 3 points for the other side. Denied. So it's saying denied to a really significant portion of the photons which are landing on planet Earth from the sun and heating us up. Now, to be clear, the long-term solution to the overheating of the planet is UNO. Sister Ivy leads an organization called We Are Uno, okay? the solution for keeping the planet's temperature stabilized is uno, and that is reducing the greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere, right? Having said that, we do not have a practical means at our disposal at this moment to reduce the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere to the level we would need to cool the planet, or even to stop the exponential overheating. And which is not to say that we should not decarbonize. That's not what I'm saying at all, okay? But we need to decarbonize within our means, and we need to and part of that, there's a very significant aspect to this. This is like layers of an onion, and to the untrained ear, this, you know, I just kind of imagine myself in your shoes, Alicia. It's like, what's all this? My life was complicated enough, and now we're talking about SRM and, you know, what, you know, who are these crazy people? Did I end up in the wrong Zoom room? And thank you. But again, we don't mince words here. We get right to the chase. And thanks, Sarah. And let's make this a co-creative conversation. I, you know, just feel I don't like to monologue too much. But so just jump in.
I unmuted myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and please ask questions as we go, comments, etc. Just jump in, Alicia. Don't hesitate.
Yeah, I should mention this, Michael. I enjoy using a box of wooden matches. So I'm burning trees.
Okay, Michael froze up. I think that's the hand
Oh.
of God. Anyway, go ahead, Alicia.
I'm just listening right now because I'm just taking this all in. So I told you I'd come on yesterday when we were in Sam's chat. So I want to learn what you're doing here. Something about a calendar, but there's more to it than just the calendar, it seems. And I feel like I walked into the right room, especially after seeing Conspiracy. I mean, I just mentioned that because I see that out my window. So it's all kind of, I'm connecting the dots today. There's a lot of dots being connected for me, and I'm meeting people that are just, it's an extraordinary day right now. So I'm just gonna absorb.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, we'll get to the calendar. Sarah suggested that we start off with SRM, and the thing is, this whole thing is one big hyper object, and so it's kind of like the 7 blind people groping different parts of the elephant and describing what they see. But so back to SRM, and then we'll tie it in with the calendar and everything else. So I was talking about decarbonization, which is where 99+% of the conversation is at. You look at COP26, you look at the United Nations, everyone's talking about decarbonization. Like that's the answer. And long term, it is the answer. But we have a short-term problem, which is that the planet is on fire, the ice is melting, and we're overheating exponentially. And decarbonization simply is not going to solve that within the time frame within which we need to solve it, which is years that you can count approximately on one hand, probably a couple years at best is the time frame we have. The only way we're going to cool the planet in time is through mirrors reflecting sunlight back into space within this extremely rigorous time frame that we have. It's just this is just the reality that we're in. And in fact, if we were to completely halt all emissions, if everyone just voluntarily turned off every car, every factory, every coal burning power plant immediately, like within the next minute, what would happen? Would the planet cool? Or would it continue to heat up? Not only would it continue to heat up, but its temperature would spike for the following simple and profound reason. The dirtiest emissions, like from coal burning power plants and factories that spit out all kinds of soot, these dirty emissions aren't just emitting greenhouse gases, they're also emitting solids, but these are solids in the form of very fine particulates, right? Based on sulfates, most of them. And these particulates act as countless super tiny mirrors that reflect sunlight back into space. So we have inadvertently created a form, an accidental form of solar radiation management, right? By producing very dirty emissions. And the thing is, the volume of those dirtiest emissions is so significant that those dirty emissions are accidentally keeping our planet cool to the tune of 1 to 2 degrees centigrade cooler than it would otherwise be if we didn't have any particulates spewing into the atmosphere. And because these are solids, you know, like on a sunny summer afternoon when late afternoon and the sun is just right, and you look through the living room and you see all these dust particles floating in the air, right? Those are solid particles, right? Sort of in this suspension of turbulent air. And you're like, why aren't those falling down? They're just kind of floating around. Well, the reality is they do fall down and they become dust that you need to then sweep off or vacuum or wipe or whatever. So those particles do fall down. It's just that they fall down very, very slowly, and they might take quite a trajectory before falling down, right? And so if we were to suddenly cut off all of our dirtiest emissions, all of those particulates would fall down over the course of several weeks. So within several weeks, we would see a spike in global average temperature of between 1 and 2 degrees centigrade, right? On top of the overheating we're already experiencing. And that would be curtains for humanity and most of complex life, because that would accelerate an already accelerating situation of melting ice, which is a vicious cycle unto itself. I assume did you see the movie An Inconvenient Truth that Al Gore put out 15 years ago? Alicia? Okay, so you know about the vicious cycle of melting Arctic ice, and that's a mirror.
I saw that before.
Yeah. So in that movie, he talked about that in a very compelling way. So the Arctic ice is SRM. There's SRM all around us. Ice is one of the biggest parts of it. Clouds are another major part of it. Anything that reflects sunlight back into space is SRM. When you look at an image of Earth from space, anything that's white or bright, that's SRM. Even a desert in the Sahara that has light-colored sand, that's reflecting sunlight back into space. And so the bottom line is we literally cannot afford to shut off all of our dirtiest emissions before we have SRM, other forms of SRM, to replace that reflectivity. And the best proposal we know of is actually a set of proposals around putting floating mirrors, vast arrays of floating mirrors in the oceans to reflect sunlight into space. This work is being pioneered by Dr. Ye Tao and company at Harvard University, specifically at the Roland Institute of Applied Physics at Harvard. And he's been on this program a number of times, and we've worked with him and Professor Guy McPherson, who introduced us to Dr. Ye Tao. Guy McPherson's been pioneering the holistic analysis of this entire situation for decades. And his prognosis
I
is...
have a quick question. I missed the name of, was there a Harvard connected person who's got a plan about this? A Harvard professor?
Yeah, that's Dr. Ye Tao. Dr. Ye Tao. I'll put the spelling of his name in the text. You can look him up. You can look up YouTube videos on him.
Good. Thank you.
He's a friend. Anyway, he's the one who pioneered the concept of creating vast arrays of floating mirrors in the oceans. I've come up with similar proposals specifically for the Arctic and desert regions of the world. And Dr. Leslie Field at Stanford has come up with a somewhat different proposal using silica powder in Arctic and glacial regions. But anyway, what all these proposals have in common is increasing the reflectivity of the planet, increasing the amount of sunlight that gets reflected out into space. And now, the fact that you're hearing about this for the first time in this Zoom meeting way off in the fringe of the Zoomosphere, Alicia, is a tragedy compounding a tragedy, right? The underlying tragedy is that we're overheating exponentially, and wildfires in California and Australia and everywhere, and melting ice everywhere. While people talk about the Kardashians and fashion and major league sports and financial markets and everything else, I mean, we are lost in space, and we are, one other aspect of this is I believe that we are trapped in what I refer to, borrowing Daniel Schmachtenberger's characterizing it this way. We are trapped in an all-day monopoly game of individualism. And that spans both individual hoarding, right, which is the most physical manifestation of this. We hoard all kinds of things. We hoard land, we hoard animals, we hoard people in the case of human slavery, human trafficking. When I say we, I'm talking about humanity as a whole. But it's not just hoarding, it's also ego, and the two often go hand in hand, conspicuous consumption, conspicuous wealth, etc. So we're trapped in a game, in an all-day monopoly game of individualism, where we're each trying to promote ourselves, regardless of the impact on animals, ecosystems, species, other people, the planet as a whole, et cetera, et cetera. And we're born into this game. The way Professor Guy McPherson puts it, we're born into captivity. And it's just the reality that we grow up in. I mean, this is what you do. You got to get out there and make money, boy. What's your problem? Get off your butt, get a job, learn, go to school for dozens of years so that you can come out and make as much money as you possibly can. And then, the impacts on the planet and all that, that's kind of secondary. We kind of leave that for these environmental whack jobs and let them kind of play around with that. But the real game is making money, right? Money talks, bullshit walks. And the penalty for losing at the all-day monopoly game of individual hoarding is you get to starve to death. You get to starve to death living in a torn up tent on the side of some highway, right? That's the way the game goes. And so, because it's really death penalty for losing, all of us are really captives within the game. So, this is kind of like a real life version of the Matrix or something like that. And we're trying to collectively bust out of it, right? I'm addicted to money. I mean, this feels like an AA meeting for money addicts is one of the ways I look at it. And it's liberating for me to say that, right? Hi, my name is Jamin Shively, and I'm a moneyholic, right? Hi, good to meet you all, right? And
I'm not. I broke out of it.
Good for you. Good for you.
Because I live in Italy. I make my money in the US 3 months out of the year. I do taxes. I'm a CPA. And I bought my house for $20,000. And I buy food for nothing. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to live here. And it's just, I know, because I teach money. I teach the relationship that we have with money, which is sick, that we learned from our parents and from our caregivers, because they didn't learn what money's about. Just its energy. And we become a slave to it in the United States. But I got away from that. In Italy, they work to live, and we live to work.
Wow, that's pretty good. That sounds absolutely great. And I'm glad that you are doing that. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Because we need to hear people doing that.
Yes, it's possible. Thank you.
Exactly. So that we see and hear that it's possible.
I really enjoy Italian dish like spaghetti, vegetarian like spaghetti with a lot of vegetables in it. I love that. So that's really good. I try to buy Italian noodles, you know.
Good, good. Well, what else can you share along that line, Alicia? Because that's really good for us to hear. Maybe you can share how you just decided to leave. Not that we have to leave the United States, we have to make that reality here. But I mean, like, to leave all that. Do you know what was the main thing that said, no, I can't anymore do this? And I think that's important for people to hear that, you know, that very essential moment when it's like, that's it, I can do this, you know? Would you like to share something like that?
I'm sorry, you know what part I got bumped out in my system. So I didn't hear everything you said, but you want me to share the moment when I like how to get out of that money hungry
Yeah.
system?
Yeah, I think that's good for people to hear,
Yeah.
you know, how exactly, or what was the thought that really helped you to do that, or
Yeah.
anything, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm a CPA and I'm supposed to know all about how to make money and make it grow and exploit, and teach people about that. And it just felt wrong to me. And I learned and I studied about the spirituality behind money. Like, if money were pure, because money is corrupted by the way it's being used. But if money were pure, it's an energy. It's energy for us to do what we need to do. It's just a tool for us to live, and creates value in whatever our values are. So if our values are good, we can do a lot of good with it. But we have belief systems around money that aren't true, and they come from our parents and who are caregivers, who many of them were raised during the Depression, when there was scarcity, and so their whole belief system is that there's scarcity and everything has to be hoarded because there's not going to be enough. And I think we've grown up with that mentality of scarcity, instead of enoughness, and that enoughness, even we don't consider ourselves enough. We look at media and we're brainwashed by the matrix on what we have to have more and more and more, and compete with our neighbors and have the latest and the Kardashians and all that. And I just realized that I'm enough, I have enough, and my value system is my value system. It's not what my parents or my society or my culture determines. And I learned a lot by just really going inside and defining my own values for myself. And so I live on a lot less. Very, very little, in fact, and I have abundance. So that's all I can share for right now, but I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, that was, I'm sure that gave everybody different ideas and perspectives. And I really love that point that you said, because it is very important to be aware. It has been important for me to, of course, that we learn these wrong concepts from the people that we love the most, the people that we trust the most, the people that love us the most. And so it's very ingrained in us, and it is going to take a lot to be able to put it aside and say, even if this so-and-so was the one that taught me this is a wrong concept that I need to kick out ASAP. And I know that that's a difficult thing. So I love that you brought that up. It was brought by people that we trust and love, and we must get rid of the concept, not the people.
Right. Well, they learned from their parents, so they didn't invent it. It's not that they're bad and taught us something. They just didn't know any better. And what happens is we have these unconscious beliefs and they run our lives. And
Yeah.
when we can remember and write down the story, our beliefs around money and who it came from, who we learned it from. And then we can see that it's just a story. It's not truth. And to say that money is evil is not true either, because if you have money, it's a resource and you can do a lot of good with resources. You could feed people, you can do a lot of things. So to say that money is evil is not the case. It's the stories that we grew up with that are wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so true. And that comes from the scripture saying money is the root of all evil. And that's not what Jesus said. Jesus, their love for money is the root of all evil. But they conveniently changed it, and they took out and brought in and did so much to the scriptures, which are still absolutely great, I think. But that is another very great point. Thank you. Yes, money can do so much good as it can do so much bad and corruption, as we know. Yes, absolutely. It's not the money. Yes,
Greed
it's
is the
greed.
problem. Greed is the problem.
Yeah, greed and using it for the wrong thing, and something that doesn't bless anyone, or for selfish ways. That is get it all together. Yes, I have to go through that too.
I admit, when I was in Florida, this Michael, when I was in Florida, I admired a mansion on the bay. And I said to myself that I would love to live in that house and I would hope to live there someday. So I admit that I was hoarding housing, my dreams.
Yes, very important points before we can get rid of all this game that we were placed on and these boxes. But I think the good thing is if we are conscious, if we can make ourselves conscious that what are the boxes that we are to keep and what are the boxes that we need to kick out or get out of, then that's good. And I can see that that's a lot of what you did. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you. On Saturday, I'm going to have I'm going to a family party and I'm going to be filming.
The screen froze, brother.
Yeah, Michael, you froze up. Michael freezes up from time to time, just so you know, everybody.
Well, yeah, the screen. Thank God, not Michael. Yeah, the screen. Oh, there you are, brother. We couldn't hear you almost all of it because the screen froze. Did you get your modem?
Yeah, it's in the box over here. My friend's going to install it later today. But what
good.
I was going to say, on Saturday, I'm going to be seeing some old friends who are mechanical geniuses. They're engineers. And I'm going to talk to them about developing a new engine that I have the plans for. I wonder, Jamin, did you get a chance to read something about that, Jamin?
Not yet. We're kind of getting all over the map topic wise. I think we're I'd like to kind of bring it back to the central topic that we're on, but I'd love to follow up with you on that a bit later if I can, Michael. But the way I see it, we're talking about money as a tool, and money can be used for good, for evil, for whatever. The central issue that I see undergirding all this is not money, but it's the game that we're playing, the game of hyper individualism. I mean, even if we lived in a world where there were no tokens, there was no money, right? There was just, all the physical stuff that we have all around us, we could equally well fall into the same trap. of hyper individualism. So money is incidental. So the real big game that we are up to, most of us here, I'll just speak for myself,
Hello.
the game that I'm up to, and I know
Hi.
many.
Good,
Hey, Sister
good.
Ivy,
How are you?
I'm gonna mute you. She sometimes forgets to mute herself. Anyway, the game I'm up to is the game of transformation, transforming life on Earth to a whole new paradigm, right? A whole new reality. And from what I know, or what I think I know about life on Earth 50,000 years ago, we lived in groups where there was no private property. There was no ownership of land. That would be like, what? That'd be like us in a sailboat ride, out on the Pacific, and then me suddenly saying, oh, I own this square mile of water. I'd be like, what? Are you crazy? That guy's crazy. What, do you take some shrooms or something? Anyway, so, but so, this is all just so artificial. We're just trapped. I use the analogy of the all-day Monopoly game. As kids, most of us had the experience at some point of being in an all-day Monopoly game where you get so into it. And, the elders, your parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles are saying, hey, why don't you go outside? It's a beautiful sunny day. And you just tune that out. You don't even see it, right? You don't want to see it. You're just locked, trapped in the game. That just becomes your reality.
What video games do to kids?
Exactly. Any kind of game. Well, this is just another game. It just so happens that it's the Hunger Games, and the stakes are life and death. And if you lose at the all-day Monopoly game, you get to starve to death. A very painful, humiliating death. Branded as a loser, branded as lazy, branded as whatever, and you're starving to death. So you couldn't work even if you wanted to because you don't have the energy. I mean, it's so horrific what we've done to ourselves and to the planet in the process. I could go on and on. We're all fairly enlightened, I'd say. But anyway, now this all gets to the topics of, okay, how do we break out? Okay, fine. We realize we're in the matrix. We're in the phone booth with the red phone, red pill, purple pill. How do we bust out of this, both individually and collectively, right? So we talk a lot about that. And and given how urgent all of this is, makes the topic of strategy, coming up with a strategy within which to liberate ourselves and the planet. Strategy is super important to me, and I think it should be to all of us. We need to figure out a strategy to get out, and we need to figure out what exactly is the goal? How do we define it? What are we trying to get to? We know where we are is really messed up and getting worse by the day. Where do we want to get to? And then how do we anticipate getting there? And during I've spent much of the last several years with an intense focus precisely on solar radiation management. How do we get humanity to awaken to the urgency of solar radiation management? And among many things that I do or have done over the years, I'm program chair for the East Bay Sierra Club dinners in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is a role my dad did for over 20 years. And so we bring all these, Sierra Clubbers from the San Francisco Bay Area, a very enlightened place, very liberal and dialed in environmentally and all that. And so a number of the dinners that I organized, now we're on a prolonged hiatus because of COVID, but among the dinners that I organized, I brought Professor Guy McPherson, Dr. Silas Rao a number of times, and others, professors from Stanford and Berkeley and various places, and said, look, we need to do this. And it was almost like it fell on deaf ears, right? And this is the Sierra Club in Berkeley, California, of all places. And I was like, what's going on? And so that all inspired me to look and dig deeper. And it's kind of like this rabbit hole that we keep going down where we still haven't hit bottom, right? And we're just realizing how trapped we are. In a little bit, we'll be joined by some folks from the Money Free Party in the UK. And we've had a number of folks on. Sarah has a profound point because they eat animals. And so through this process and all this digging and going down the proverbial rabbit hole, we've joined forces with a number of wonderful vegans, and many of us are on the vegan journey now, who weren't before, who didn't even have that on our radar before, right? I was talking with Alan Savory years ago and went to his workshop in Colorado, partly because I resisted the idea of giving up meat, right? And anyway, so there's all these facets to the hyperobject, but in terms of strategy and goal, the goal is that we live in harmony with each other and with nature, with ecosystems, with the animals. We have all the tools that we need to do it. We just need to liberate ourselves. And number one, and number two, become truly responsible citizens of a new world that we intentionally co-create. That's how I see it. So I'd like to screen share and share some of my thoughts on strategy. So with everyone's blessing, I will do that. I like to draw pictures. So I think of rows of dominoes. Think V for Vendetta. Raise your hand if you've seen the movie V for Vendetta. Anyway, at one point he pushes over this one domino, which then sets multiple trains of dominoes going. And so the dominoes here on the left that I'm drawing, I'm going to call these, we're kind of looking from above. So the idea is you knock over this domino and it gets all these dominoes going one at a time. The train of dominoes on the left, I'm going to call humanity's needs, right? Part of the reason we're trapped in this game is we're taught that the only way we're going to get our fundamental needs met is if we play this game. And so one crucial way of disrupting the game is meeting humanity's needs, just meeting the needs and saying, look, food, shelter, water, healthcare, etc., all taken care of, because it's extremely efficient to do this in a communally organized way, particularly food. So, and then the other row of dominoes here on the right is the needs of Mother Earth. And as a story, because we need a new story for humanity, so we do tell a lot of stories here. But one of the stories I like to tell is the story of the airplane. And when you're on the airplane, what's the first thing they tell you? Hey, if there's a sudden loss of cabin pressure, first put on your own oxygen mask and then help the people next to you. Well, think of us as humanity. We're humanity sitting in row 23, seat 23B, and there's a sudden loss in cabin pressure. The first thing we need to do is take care of ourselves. We need to eat, drink, have shelter, have healthcare. We need to be well. That's humanity putting on her own oxygen mask so that we can then suddenly turn to the passenger sitting next to us. Who is that? It's a woman. Oh my goodness. It's my mother. It's Mother Earth. So humanity needs to put on her own oxygen mask before we can attend to Mother Earth. I mean, in reality, we're doing both in parallel, but in story form, that's the way I like to tell it. And now it just so happens that the first domino that I'm proposing here, or that we're proposing, I'll speak in terms of we, don't let me speak for you. And so feel free to speak up if you see it differently. But we have really resonated here quite a bit. The first domino that we talk about here is the domino of food, feeding everyone plant-based foods, as Sister Ivy and Sarah and others are pioneering in Los Angeles. You can probably see on the screen there an image of a community cafe. That's something we pioneered years ago, just feeding everyone for free. Now, the fact that it's plant-based foods, right, is the single biggest thing we can do for stopping the destruction of the biosphere, as you just saw in Seaspiracy, is stop killing and eating animals, right? Or the milk and dairy products therefrom. And so feeding everyone plant-based foods, that's why this is such a quintessential domino, because it gets two trains going. It's the single biggest thing we can do for Mother Earth, as well as for humanity, right? And it's hard for a lot of people to imagine, but can you imagine a Los Angeles where there is just abundant food made freely available to everyone, right? And that's worth taking some time to imagine, because as we imagine into that, and then we say, wait a second, wow, you know, how did this happen? And then people learn how it happened. And there's very efficient ways to do it logistically, extremely efficient ways, in such a way that we can have it all powered by donations and volunteerism. And I believe that will kick off a spiritual transformation where we will then turn to shelter, to healthcare, to other basic human needs, you know, community, et cetera, access to open space, transportation. I could go on. And all of this constitutes humanity putting on her own oxygen mask, this whole row of dominoes here. And as we do that, then we're finally breathing. Now we can finally turn our attention to the passenger sitting to our right, who is our own Mother Earth. And then we can say, okay, great. Now that we went plant-based, all right, now let's, you know, let's stop chopping down trees. You know, let's protect forests rather than mow them down for animal agriculture, for mahogany, for all these reasons, et cetera, et cetera. Let's, you know, stop using single-use plastics. Let's, you know, cut down our emissions, all these good things. And of course, but actually the very second one right after food, I believe that's when we can finally we will finally be liberated to the extent that we can finally see and hear SRM, right? SRM is meaningless to a person who is in a life and death struggle for survival. It's just meaningless. It's like the last thing they want to hear about. They tune it out. They really don't have bandwidth to even take it in. And that, in a nutshell, is why we are just so blind to what is right in front of us, the urgency of cooling the planet so that we can survive. We're so focused on individual survival, we can't even think about the survival of a planet. I can't even survive myself. How the hell am I going to make a whole planet survive if I can't even survive, right? That's the trap that we're in. Anyway, that's what I have to say about strategy. And in a nutshell, the Chrysalis Calendar is a calendar for all meetings like this one, which address one facet or another or multiple simultaneously of everything we're talking about here. Whether it's getting the world to go plant-based, organized systems for feeding everyone for free, organized systems for cooling the planet, such as SRM, whether it is addressing our addiction to money, whether it's addressing the fundamental game of hyper-individualism that we're all trapped in and we're all playing with such intensity every day of the week, all of our lives, whatever facet or facets, if you, whoever you are, this sounds like a 2 a.m. infomercial, if you have an idea for a conversation that is relevant to this overall story of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, put it up on the Chrysalis Calendar so that other people can find out about it. And it is our job, all of our jobs, to look at the Chrysalis Calendar, see what these meetings are, and see where we can best plug in, which is a combination of our own passions and our understanding and perception of the urgencies involved, what is most urgent, et cetera, et cetera. And this gets to what I both wrote about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Brother Jamin, thank you for saying this. This is a very important thing to say. The Chrysalis Calendar is going to make a difference so huge. Thank you for saying that. And I like what you said. What was that? How was that? If you have, we should keep that, because I'm sure, for sure myself, and probably many of us have ideas that would be good for any of us, for people, to bring it to the calendar, and still haven't done it. I'm first me. And it's very important that you say that. Let's just keep that. If you have an idea, we need it, absolutely. And that's so great that you brought it. And by the way, one of the things is that we were going to schedule, remember, another meeting for coaching in how to put the things in the calendar or whatever. I don't know if we need 10 minutes or half an hour, but they were talking about 20 minutes to half an hour. And I'm just bringing it back because this is very important what you just said. Thank you. Has that meeting, I was just hoping that I didn't miss that meeting, or we haven't done it.
No, we have not done it. And
Okay.
yeah. And
Whew.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about here, from Michael's mechanical systems to scheduling the meeting for how to put stuff up on the Chrysalis calendar to building the Chrysalis calendar itself. But right now, I say let's kind of stay focused as we are on the big picture, the strategy, and just kind of the big picture of all these multiple facets that are so important. You see, just like Alicia said, that she's now in the process of making these great connections and discovering all these great people and events, etc. The big picture, as I see it, is a whole bunch of us imaginal cells. Alicia, I trust you know the story of the caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly, etc., and you know about imaginal cells and all that. Okay, so we're a whole bunch of imaginal cells who are waking up in different parts of the chrysalis, and we're waking up with our sticky eyes and just like, what's going on? Where am I? You know, my old world is falling apart. It's dissolving. And here I am kind of in this matrix of goo. And what I'm getting a signal from a nearby imaginal cell. Oh, you too? You're seeing it too? Yeah, great. Let's talk. So the Chrysalis calendar is precisely a place for us imaginal cells to come together, to organize, to have meetings, and begin to make sense of this collectively, right? And just like the intelligence of a single neuron in the brain just out there firing away is very, very limited, right? It's either firing or it's not firing. But what creates intelligence, human intelligence, is all these neurons firing together and communicating with each other. Now, if we take that up a notch, here we are, you know, six or seven of us in this room talking with each other, bouncing ideas off of each other. This is what I wrote about in the email as the new sexual revolution. In the original sexual revolution in biology, see, at first we were just organisms that just multiplied and made copies of ourselves, right? And then biology discovered this amazing thing called sex for the very utilitarian purpose that it provided a means for mashing up our DNA and coming up with all kinds of new combinations. And the Cambrian explosion happened, and we had just this tremendous diversity of life. And you know, a couple billion years later, here we are, you know, in this really weird crisis of our own creation. You know,
Brother,
you couldn't make. Yeah, go ahead, Sister Ivy.
yeah, you said jump in, so but because this is wonderful to hear this word sex in the way that you are using it, as opposed to, you know, what we have in the world, this big mess. I am just making a pause to say thank you for bringing that word sex in a pure, good way, because it's so corrupted outside, and it's beautiful to hear it in that way. Thank you.
Yeah, so true.
We need it. We need it. We just hear in the billboards and everywhere, sex, sex, sex in that corrupted way. Wow, brother, it is great to have heard it this way.
Thank you, Sister Ivy. Thank you. You know, I'm a student of evolution, and in fact, I worked very closely with some of the early pioneers of a technology called evolutionary programming back in the 90s, which is one of the forms of artificial intelligence, evolutionary programming. And it's simulated evolution on the computer for simulating the evolution, not of biological organisms, but of engineering solutions to real world problems. And I took that knowledge and expertise, and as a consultant working for Cemex, the big Mexican cement company that's worldwide, we created a system to simultaneously optimize production planning and logistics planning for the biggest operation of human-made materials ever up to that point on the planet. And anyway, all that is to say is that when I think in terms of evolution, I don't just think in terms of biological evolution. I think of the evolution of ideas, the evolution of solutions. This cellular phone is the product of the evolution of ideas over many decades and tens of millions of people hours, person hours dedicated to evolving their ideas and designs and prototypes and testing and failures and successes, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know.
So here we are engineering a new world.
Yeah,
with all our thoughts.
That's right. We're designing and engineering a whole new world with our thoughts, which is something we're totally capable of. We're actually overqualified for. We've been doing it by default within the confines of the prison of the game that we're trapped in. But now that we're awakening to the fact that we're trapped in a prison, we're like that great Clint Eastwood movie from 1979, Escape from Alcatraz. Raise your hand if you've seen that movie. It's one of my favorites. And, you know, here are these really smart people who happen to be inmates in a really hard prison to break out of, and they break out, right? That's the situation we're in now. So we're overqualified for the job. We just need to find each other and build out this network of conversations. And so if you think of it as a scaling up thing, this evolution of ideas, so I can have, you know, one neuron can have very limited thinking capacity, all these neurons packed into this skull. Wow. You know, we come up with all kinds of amazing stuff. Just look at all the great human creations, Beethoven, Da Vinci, et cetera. And, but now here we are in a room where we're mashing our ideas up. This is sexual reproduction and evolution of ideas that's happening right here, right now. Every time Sister Ivy opens her mouth, we're mashing up ideas, right? And that's why I call this the new sexual revolution. And I think there's even a potential for a new meme called NewSex. Every time you say, look, the two words that wake us up the most to a human who's walking down the street, smoking a cigarette, minding their own business. If you say new, you get their attention. You say sex, now you've really got their attention. Put the two together, NewSex, the new sexual revolution.
Yeah,
What? Pardon?
New pre-roll cannabis.
Thank you, Michael, who often brings the topic back to cannabis, new pre-roll.
I see where you're onto something, because to say the new earth, or it's just, for a lot of people, it's not sexy, and sex does sell. It's just, we're wired for that. And it's creativity. Like, that is what sexual energy is. It's creativity. It's sacred. It's the highest frequency known on the planet, in the universe, and it's been corrupted because it's powerful. And they, in the matrix, the controllers, know that if we tap into that in its purest sense, they're shit out of business, because we are gods with that sexual energy that's in all of our cells. So I know I'm right with you there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, and we've all experienced it being on these Zoom meetings where we start to resonate and we're all contributing and it's this collective dance and we sort of lose concept of the individual to a degree, right? I'm still an individual, but I'm now part of this collective and we're doing this collective dance. And so in this, and precisely in this lovemaking of ideas, like in other forms of lovemaking, you start to lose yourself as you merge with others and become part of this larger, much more powerful, much more creative thing. And we've all experienced it, and it's a wonderful thing. And we don't have to feel badly about it. We can feel great about it. We can jump into it. And let's call it for what it is. It's NewSex, right?
Without
and especially
protection.
Pardon me?
Without protection.
It's funny. See, given that we're in COVID times, right? We actually are protected. The Zoomosphere is kind of like one big collective condom of sorts, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I'm injecting humor into it. Sex. I mean, you're talking to a guy who has spent the last 7 years of his life trying to wake up humanity and saying, hey, you know,
Yeah.
Maybe
and so
Alice, do you think what you meant is without needing protection? I wondered if is that what you meant?
Oh, I was just being a little tongue in cheek there, but the fact is that because we are on Zoom and because my whole social life now exists on Zoom, I live a protected life, and this is protected sex. However you look at it.
It is.
It's protected interactions. It's the only way, and our ideas are we don't have to be in person. We can. Our whole universe is expanded, and we're all over the world here. We're having this conversation. We've never done this before. This is unprecedented. People working from home and smart working is unprecedented. I'm here in Italy because of the same thing. I was like strategically brought here energetically. The earth moved me to this place. I didn't just pick up and decide to go. People are being strategically placed in different parts of the world. There's healing. See, I see that the first square, you labeled it food. I label it healing trauma. I think that people are numb, and that's why you can go into a room of all these, erudite liberals, and they're like so numb because the system has made us numb. We're so busy chasing our money so we can eat that we don't have time to even have these discussions, and only COVID gave us that time. This time now, and that's, and I've been doing this for 6 years, and I've been waiting for humanity to wake up. When COVID hit, I was like, yes, finally people can slow down and listen to their heart and their soul. And I saw the Renaissance immediately, but people weren't ready for the Renaissance yet because they had to feel their trauma first. They had to feel the collective pain. And we had a year of that, and maybe it's still going on, but we're waking up from the pain, and we're seeing we're sensitive now. We're looking out the windows, and I'm seeing this fishing rig that has been there for a year, but I didn't notice it until I saw Seaconspiracy, and that just like ripped me open. And now I'm aware of things on a different, like every day I'm more and more sensitive to things. So you're speaking my language.
But according to what you said, so do you think this is a very temporary thing to be all on a screen, or do you think this is something that humanity is
I
It's
think we're going,
it's meant to live for the rest of the life, like some people say. So I'm just asking.
I just think we're moving toward being telepathic, and we won't need this. This is a temporary situation because we'll have thoughts, and our thoughts will communicate energetically with each other and will bring us together. Because
Interesting.
we're not the only people having this conversation. It's happening all over the world. You know, we're tapped into some universal intelligence that those who are waking up are saying the same things. It's not just this group. But I believe that
Interesting, yeah.
there'll be more pandemics if we don't wake up. There'll be more. I mean, there'll be more viruses. There'll be more fires. There'll be more destruction. And
Oh yeah.
how much will it take for people to wake up? More and more are waking up for sure. But how much more destruction and pain needs to happen? Look at India. I mean, that's probably been going on for a year, but we're just hearing about it now. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me.
I guess you.
Before.
Yeah. You remind me of that song. When will they ever learn? You know that song? Anybody? Brother Jamie, I'm sure you know that
Where
song, right?
is
Brother
that?
Jamie?
Where have all the flowers gone? Where have all the
Yes.
flowers? Yeah, that's it. No, I learned
Yes.
that as a
That's
kid.
it.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
will they ever learn? Well, now is our
Yes.
opportunity to learn. It's really now or never.
Yeah.
Because either we take collective responsibility for our collective predicament and, you know, feed the people, stop killing the animals and put the mirrors in the ocean, right? Or it's going to be that's all, folks, right? Part of me is uncomfortable with what I just said, and we'll get to that later, but Michael's had his hand up. He's been patiently waiting. Sarah's been writing some cool stuff in the chat. Michael, whenever you're available, you're off screen right now. Anyway, we'll whenever Michael gets back. But I'm loving this conversation. This is it. This is the essence. And the thing is, now again, scale up from a neuron to a brain to a group of people in a room like here to tens of thousands of such conversations, each with its own focus. Some are focused on the engineering of SRM, right? Some are focused on the recipes for the plant-based stews that we're serving up to people in Los Angeles. Others are focused on the logistics of getting the leftover food from the farmers markets in Los Angeles into the kitchens, the communal kitchens, where we're preparing the aforementioned plant-based stews, right? Others are focused on money. Others are focused on spirituality. Others are focused on yoga, on and on. Others are focused on politics. We need planetary governance. This is one spaceship, right? You know, on Star Trek, there is one bridge where they concentrate the collective intelligence of the entire ship and they steer it to safety. There aren't 10,000 or millions of different bridges on the Enterprise competing with each other, for crying out loud, right? The ship would crash and burn at the hands of the Klingons. And that's what's happening now. Basically, we've got Klingons all over the ship, right? And divided into tens of millions of different pods, you know, families, businesses, right? Communities, etc. And we're all essentially at war with each other. Whether we're competing in the marketplace, I was corporate strategy manager at Microsoft for a number of years, competing with Google, Facebook, this and that. Whether we're competing in the marketplace, competing on the battlefield, right? Competing, I mean, even in the Zoomosphere, you know, I've been the subject of 2 character assassination attempts by a network that considers themselves competing to ours, right? Because of innovations we came up with here. So anyway, we're all, it's like we're just we haven't figured out collectively we need a single planetary governance, which does not mean that we all need to be concentrated under a Mao Zedong or Fidel Castro or Adolf Hitler, but I believe in a distributed planetary governance, but it's a single planet, so we need a single governance. Anyway, that's yet another topic. Governance, politics, right? There's so many facets to this. Michael, you had your hand up a
Yeah,
bit ago.
like Eric will talk about how people can build consensus. You know, if people don't have a major problem with a good idea, then nobody has strongly objects, then it's more likely than not that it's adopted idea.
Yeah, it's so clear that we're right on the cusp. I like what you're saying about telepathy. I forget the word you used, Alicia, where it'll just happen automatically. But until then, here we are in kindergarten in the training wheels of the Zoomosphere, in this new sexual revolution of ideas and solutions and story, and all the rest.
Yeah, yesterday I was on Stanley's page, and there was a number of us from the conversation there, and I wrote a message out to everyone that this person that lives in Ontario should take a ferry ride from Windsor over to Detroit. I'll pay for it. And she was laughing. And then about an hour later, she said, I have to go on my ferry ride. True story, happened yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, I met Alicia yesterday in Stanley's room. All right, here's Eric from the Money Free Party. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for Alicia, for you to meet Eric. He's super cool.
Oh, great. I'm excited to see everybody here.
Eric, how you doing? All right, well, this is exciting. I get to introduce one Anglo living in a Mediterranean country to another Anglo living in a Mediterranean country. Eric, living in beautiful Galicia, Spain. Meet Alicia, living in beautiful coastal Italy. And you've got, and that's just the beginning of your commonality. Both of you have very profound insights into money. Eric is one of the leaders of the Money Free Party in the UK, and I believe the principal author of most of the good stuff on their amazing website. And Alicia is a CPA who has undergone a spiritual transformation and has very profound thoughts on money itself. Anyway, I think Cupid has done his job. The arrows are in flight. And please say hello to each other.
Yeah. Very nice to meet you, Alicia.
Nice to meet you too, Eric. Where are you, in Spain?
Northwest corner, just above Portugal.
Oh, okay. I was in Nerja in Andalusia a couple years ago. Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, it's lovely around here. It's mountains and rivers is the main geographical features around here. It's really nice.
Very nice.
So how long ago did you move back to Italy?
Well, I've been here for 6 years, normally half the year here and half the year in California.
Okay.
But I've been here almost a year now because of the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, traveling's a nightmare, isn't it? I haven't seen my mother for a year and a half, and
yeah,
I
it's
don't
hard.
know when we're next going to be able to see her. But yeah, no, so stuff like that. It's going to be. Yeah, we'll have to just see how it plays out. There's have you heard of Dolores Cahill? She's a professor at Dublin University, or at least she was. I don't know if she still is. She may have lost her job. But anyway, she is part of an organization called the Freedom Alliance. And one of the things they're trying to do is to set up what they're calling freedom travel. So people that have not had the vaccine or don't get the passport or whatever will still be able to travel about. So it's it'll be very interesting to see how the market adapts to all of this. I mean, I don't know what the percentages are, but in the UK, something like 20-25% of the population are highly resistant to having the vaccination. That's a pretty substantial number of people who would have their movements seriously curtailed in the absence of a passport. So I reckon the market will produce alternatives.
We'll see. I think California is up to 80%.
Sorry, I missed that. California's what? You cut out on me there for a minute. I don't know if it was me or you.
Oh, I don't know. Who's talking?
You just said California something.
Oh, I just think that California has a very high percentage of vaccinated people. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out.
And here in the
What-
state of Washington, where we have a high percentage of vaccinated people, you see all kinds of people out in public, unmasked, wanting to believe that the pandemic is over so they can mix it up again and socialize. And a little bit ago, we were talking about what I'm coining the new sexual revolution, not making reference to a sexual revolution in the 1960s, but rather the original sexual revolution from 2 billion years ago, the sexual revolution in biology, from where we went from, I forget the term, but where just a single organism just makes copies of itself, to sexual reproduction, where we get to mash up DNA. Here, the new sexual revolution, we're mashing up ideas. We're mashing up solutions. We're mashing up strategy and components of strategy to survive, thrive, transform, save, heal, and transform life on Earth. And it's interesting. So when I see people out here in communities in the state of Washington just going around unmasked, this is humanity groping to reconnect the old way, right? The old way of socializing and mating, et cetera, et cetera. We've created this new way through the Zoomosphere. We were making the analogy to it's a form of safe sex, but it's sexual reproduction and transformation and co-creation of ideas and solutions. But you know what? And most of the people on this call probably know this. I read this first read this years ago, that when people come together to co-create intellectually, it stimulates the same parts of the brain as physical lovemaking, right?
Sure.
You're not suggesting, are you,
Yeah.
that nobody should ever see each other again unmasked and all in social interaction should take place mediated on Zoom, are you? You're not suggesting that?
Eric, my brother, I cannot wait to give you the biggest hug in person, share a joint with you.
I think we massively underestimate, particularly in the Western world, I think we massively underestimate the impacts that this has on us psychologically, being separated from each other and unable to hug each other, unable to kiss each other, unable to shake each other's hands, unable to be in each other's presence. Don't get me wrong, this is great, and I rely entirely on this for pretty much all of my social interactions. I'm not in any way trying to diss Zoom, but it is not a substitute for the building of real relationships in real time with real people. Do you know what I mean? When you just hang out with each other in actual space together, just shit just happens. On these, the calls are very focused. We talk about specific things, and there's very little space for extraneous randomness to occur. But it is those silly little strange random things that actually build those ties of intimacy between people. I've had it a couple of times that people I've built like good relationships with online, and then I've met them in person, and it's been weird and it's been awkward, right? Because there's this expectation of intimacy that you've built up online, which just doesn't stand the test of being in physical proximity, right? It's a whole different set of ties that need to be built before you have physical intimacy with someone, right? This just does not. This is a fairly poor facsimile. It's better than nothing for sure, but it's a poor facsimile for the real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Michael. I was thinking about having like a small convention in the Midwest, like in Chicago in the fall, where you can call together people who we connect with. But Zoom is fine.
Yeah, and just to be clear, in response to what Eric said, I'm not at all claiming that, hey, this is wonderful and this perfectly substitutes for all those social interactions and biological needs and everything else that we had in the old world. I'm just saying this is real, it's awesome, it's amazing, and it's completely different. And it is a form of sex, of polyamorous, safe sex of ideas and solutions and co-creations, and it feels great, and I am not ashamed at all about that. That's all I'm saying.
If we're going to use the sex analogy, I guess Zoom would be something along the lines of masturbation as opposed to actual love, intimate lovemaking with another person, right? So,
No,
it does the
no,
job, it gets you off, but it's not it's not the same thing.
No, 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 no. Mm-mm,
I
no.
appreciate what you're saying. Masturbation for me is when I'm just sitting writing or thinking by myself. For me, this is polyamorous group sex with a pretty thick condom.
Group masturbation. You're right. It's group masturbation. You're right.
All
For me, it's group.
right, guys. All right, let's just move on. Let's just move on.
Speaking,
Uh,
speaking of condoms and safety, I received 2 Narcan doses in the name of my late friend Marvin. I donated them to a gathering place in the city of Detroit, and they sent me like 30 condoms. I want to give those out, but this is a West Michigan organization that just gives out free Narcan if you take a training video and such. But very good organization.
I would like to share, especially with Brother Jamin, the term intercourse was used around the 19th century for communication.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Later on, it got to be intercourse, the sex, physical thing. But the term in that century, and I don't know for how long it went that way, was communication. So it was talking about intercourse as the communications among people to get to something. So I thought that was something related to what we're talking about.
You're absolutely right. Intercourse literally means between pathways, right? So sharing people across different pathways. That's its literal. And you're absolutely right. It was originally to do with discussion.
Yes.
The exchange of ideas was
yeah.
intercourse. That's absolutely right.
Yes. And then it become, I will say in this case specifically, then it became corrupted by being just about physical thing, but it started as, what Brother Jamin is bringing, like, hey, it's about, exchange of ideas so that we can get somewhere better. So, yeah.
And if we can have
So I
some
just
fun
thought
along the way, so much the better, right?
Exactly. Well, Alicia pointed out yesterday when I met her on the chat people conversation, she pointed out that sexual attraction is the most creative force we know of, right? And what we're dealing with here is a mutual attraction, not just person to person. That's very real and it's wonderful because we get to see each other and hear each other's tones of voice and gestures and all that. But it's an attraction of ideas. We're here not just to talk about anything and have a drink at the bar. We're here to solve our problems in a very co-creative way. So I thought of the tight new name brand, actually, NewSex, right? The new sexual revolution, and a very simple slogan: "Let's get it on." And the Chrysalis Calendar becomes the match.com of ideas, solutions, strategy for saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. So let's get it on. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get it on, and starting in 17. Pardon me. Go ahead.
I just said, let's zoom it on. Let's zoom it on.
Let's zoom it on.
That's a new song. Let's zoom it on.
Let's zoom it on. Exactly. Very good. And in 16 minutes at the top of the hour, Brother Eric here will lead a game called the Glass Beads game, which is yet another way, a really great way, in fact, of getting it on in the Zoomosphere, right?
I will precede that with the glass bowl time.
No, I really think we're onto something here. And Alicia, I really like the way that you characterized how a lot of liberals will get on these Zoom meetings and just be so dry and boring and, dare I say, asexual, right? And fundamentally, they're playing the old game of looking good, ego. This is my idea, not your idea. So don't you dare try to take credit for it, right? Or even add to it. You know, this is my show, right? I talked about the character assassination attempts that another actually very substantial network of folks doing transformational stuff have launched against me. 2 very significant character assassination attempts. I just point that out as kind of an extreme form of this bringing the old paradigm into this new game, right?
Sorry,
And so
was this recently, Jamin? Was this recently that you've been
no,
assassinated?
this was last year during COVID times. One was in the summer and another was in the fall, and both coincided with our launching new innovative things right here in this community. The first one was when we launched The Conversation as a 24/7 thing right here in this Zoom room. And the second was when we launched the press conference, which is where we are right now, the Thursday press conference. And just so Alicia knows, every Friday tomorrow, we have the 24-hour collective intelligence block party, which, just like the name suggests, yeah, it's a 24-hour.
You are required to be there for all of it.
Yeah, you have to be there for all of it.
I'm going to a yoga retreat tomorrow.
Okay, well, you'll have to cancel that because the block party is on. No, we do it every Friday, and contrary to what Eric said, everyone's encouraged to just come and go as you please. Bring your friends.
Do you come dressed or naked? No, just kidding.
Naked. It's mandatory naked. No.
You took it right away, brother.
Bring Quaaludes and condoms.
I need to say this on behalf of our dear brother Jamin, because you really show, and this is, I've seen it from day one, and that's one of the big reasons I'm still here. So I'm saying, that's why I said this on your behalf, because it's fair. You are one of the people that don't hug the idea of just getting your ideas, getting them out, and knowing that they're not yours. And what you were saying, don't touch my idea, don't add to it, don't whatever. And you're very good at that, brother. And this is just fair, because you get all your amazing, wonderful inspirations. I call them inspiration because the ideas really come from that wisdom to us. But you just get them out there and just let people, hey, let's make them better. And that's really remarkable. Really, I want to thank you for that beautiful quality and way to be. And I'm sure that is also a reason why many of these wonderful, great thinkers keep on in the conversation here. So thank you, brother. We got to make justice, right? It's just fair.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, Sister
Yes.
Ivy.
True.
Thank you. But this is something we're all co-creating here, right? One of our slogans here is, with you here, now it's perfect, right?
Yes.
Alicia,
yes.
with you here, now it's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Makes me feel
Yes. The brother brought it from, where was that, in San Diego, right? They had that?
No, it
And
was
he
the
brought it here?
former mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio
that's right.
Villaraigosa.
Oh,
And
that's right. Yes.
I'll tell the story in a minute, but Michael has his hand up. He's had his hand up for a minute. Go ahead, Michael. Okay, Michael's frozen. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Oh.
he's muted.
I don't remember what I was going to say, but I'm enjoying the conversation. I'll be leaving. I cannot attend Eric's session because I have an appointment, but I will rejoin later.
Okay.
No problem.
Brother,
No problem.
yes.
I'm very slow. I'm very slow because I got my vaccine yesterday, so I'm dragging today, literally.
Be
And
very
between that
careful.
and between that and bong hits, If you raise your hand, a couple bong hits later, you've kind of reset. Anyway, that's right. So let me tell the story about with you here. Now it's perfect. So I'd been living in Ohio most of 2011, caring for my uncle on the final stretch of his life. And after he passed, I went to Los Angeles to stay with some friends for a bit. And I hadn't been in LA in a few years. And I arrive in Los Angeles on an airplane. I get off at LAX, this huge airport. And there's a big sign, a big picture, big poster, huge poster of the mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, smiling at me, saying, "Welcome to Los Angeles. With you here, now it's perfect."
Oh,
Right?
nice.
And what a transformational message in a city which can otherwise feel very exclusive, crowded. There's no place for you here, right? There's already too many of us here. I remember driving in San Diego in the 70s with my father and brother. My dad pointed out a bumper sticker on the highway, said, "Jamin, look at that." It said, "Welcome to San Diego. Now go home."
You found two opposites, huh? Two opposites.
Well,
No,
Very well.
the thing is, sorry, go ahead, James. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please carry on.
oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, it's like, as soon as I saw that poster, with all my trepidation around Los Angeles, I'm from California, from Northern California. But, in previous
Yes, you
visits to
are.
Los Angeles, I had felt, the pressure of LA and the this and the that and all the materialism and all this. And so I had all these stories. Here's Antonio Villaraigosa saying, "Welcome to Los Angeles. With you here, now it's perfect." And it was just a poster, right? But just like any piece of artwork it's just a piece of artwork hanging on the wall, AKA ignore it, right? Look at how transformational that was. And it just like set the tone for just a wonderful extended stay in Los Angeles. So memes are things, they're very powerful things. And so when I come up with a meme, NewSex, let's get it on. With you here, now it's perfect, right? We're setting a tone. We're creating the coolest party on earth. And it's a party that's happening in tens of thousands of different rooms. And if you want a map to it, it's the Chrysalis Calendar, the match.com of the safe sex of ideas, solutions, news stories for humanity, etc., in the Zoomosphere. The best place to get it on in the Zoomosphere, Chrysalis Calendar.
Wow, that was a commercial. You
Wasn't
recorded
it?
You recorded that. That was good.
This is all being recorded. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good because it's cool. And you know what? Like Joe Cool, the average American needs something like a new American dream, because the American dream was just like shoved down our throat. Buy a home in the suburbs and buy a big SUV and, have a Stepford wife and picket fence and all these things that destroyed the nature, destroyed everything, destroyed our lives. And we need a new dream. We need something that's cool, because saving the earth, people just go like, oh, what? That's not even, like, they just take from the earth. The earth doesn't even exist to these people. But sex, NewSex, I mean, they're going to want a piece of that, and yeah, I mean, it's better in person. We'd have an orgy, but you know what? We wouldn't be meeting in person. We're all over the world here. This is as good as it gets right now in this sphere. So I see it. I'm seeing it. Light bulbs.
I love it. Thank you, Alicia. And thank you for co-creating this infomercial with us, this 2-hour infomercial, right? This is as good as it gets.
Pretty good.
Let's get it on.
I'm going to do my usual thing here and piss on the fire, because for me, maybe this is a cultural thing, right? Maybe this is a English-American cultural difference. But for me, when I see a poster of a mayor saying, "Welcome to LA, now that you're here, it's perfect," I see slimy politician and advertising slogan is what I see, right? And you actually moved by it, right? Whereas I would have gone ugh at it. It's just, and I think this is a English American cultural thing. We do not like sentimentality and schmaltz at all. We hate it. Whereas I think the American psyche kind of likes it.
Well, we don't like it. We don't like it here either. But now it's turned into something positive, which is what, good thinkers can do, turn whatever it is into something good. So I'm glad you got it.
You're right, Sister Ivy. Do you want to hear music or do you want to hear music?
Well, Eric, you can't practice safe oral sex with a stiff upper lip.
Brother James, welcome. Brother James, hello, welcome.
Hi, Sister Ivy. I'm here all the time.
I see another nice poster over there or picture. Thank you.
James is an artist.
Welcome to the biggest safe sex orgy on Zoom.
Is that the sand trap at Mar-a-Lago golf course? Is that the sand trap?
Brother Michael, I was going to say that I am very excited about you getting your mode today so that the screen doesn't get frozen anymore. That would be wonderful. That will be wonderful. So thank you for getting to that. Yes.
With your new modem here, now it's perfect.
Yeah, that's that's true.
The other thing is that now you're here, it's perfect. Is what you're saying is that it wasn't perfect before you got here, it was inadequate, right? But now you're here, it's perfect. Or if the notion is that it's always perfect, whoever gets, because he's saying it to everyone that arrives, right? So for everyone that arrives, until you got here, it wasn't perfect. But hang on, the person that got here before me made it perfect. Do you know what I mean? So there's a fakeness to it. There's a falseness and an untruthfulness to it, which rankles me somehow or other.
Eric, you're being too British. You're being too smart. You're being too intellectual. Roll yourself a damn joint. Smoke it up.
I will accept all of those criticisms.
And take off your clothes and freaking jump in and start grabbing at stuff. That Michael's got the spirit there.
Yeah, I was gonna mention our late friend Stan Dale, who was a well-known voice actor, and I think he was the voice of Lone Ranger or some major radio show. He was a Californian. He started the Human Awareness Institute, HAI.org, and it has a lot to do with intimacy and asking for what you want 100% of the time. Those types of lessons over.
Mm. Are you still with the institute? Brother,
no, I graduated. I graduated.
He graduated to the Institute of NewSex.
Yeah. Yes. Although I feel like we are doing the same they did at that time now with this Zoom ideas meeting, and now it's going a lot into the sex thing. And I'm kind of feeling that it's going like the same of the intercourse was about good communication among people, and now it became to be about physical. So I don't know. Let's be careful with this.
I agree.
Yeah, no. And the thing is, see, what we're doing here is we're kind of dancing close to a line, and sometimes we cross the line, and then others bring us back. It's all good. We're just going with the dance. Speaking of the dance, it's just before the top of the hour. So, Eric, I have okay, it looks like we got some folks coming into the glass speed game. Eric, do you want me to record or not record?
No recording. But if you could make me
No
host
recording.
so I could do breakout rooms, that would be good.
Absolutely. Let me stop recording I'll stop now. Thank you all for the previous couple hours. It's been wonderful, and hopefully it's been for you as well. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
brother.
All right, everyone is welcome to stick around.